Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, What You Need to Know About BACCM. I'm your host, Tiffany Iacolino, and I work on the marketing team at IIBA. IIBA is an independent, not-for-profit professional association serving the global business analysis community. A recognized thought leader dedicated to elevating the discipline of business analysis, we provide our global community with relevant tools, resources, and networking opportunities. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A panel and we will answer some of your questions at the end of the session as time permits. Today's webinar recording will be available for a limited time on IIBA's webinars archive page within 10 business days of the broadcast. Please also check out the chat area for helpful links and resources on the information that we share today. I am here today with two amazing speakers for an exciting discussion on BACCM. I'll start by introducing our presenters. Please welcome Oge. Oge is a business transformation enthusiast. She has served as project manager, business analyst, and organizational change manager on diverse transformation projects across multiple industries over the past 13 years. She holds a first-class honors degree and has several professional certifications, and she's currently the Director of Professional Development at IIBA's Halifax chapter. She also owns Pollard Consults, an IIBA endorsed education provider. Welcome, Oge.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And a very warm welcome to Stuart. Stuart has over 25 years of business and information technology experience, including 20 years of business analysis and 15 years in the Salesforce ecosystem. Stuart also holds several professional certifications and serves as the lead solution architect for Thrivent Financial. In his role, he uses his business analysis skills every day. Thank you both for being here today. So to kick off today's webinar, we are going to actually start with a quick poll just to get a sense of our audience. So I'm going to launch the poll. You can submit your responses using the voting tool, and the poll will be open for approximately 1 minute. So we're just gauging how familiar you are with the business analysis core concept model, or as you've heard me refer to it as in our acronym, the BACCM. So thank you for submitting your responses. There's tons of responses rolling in. I'm going to give another couple of moments just to make sure we give everyone a chance to share. Right now, it's very interesting split here. So this is going to be a fun one for sure. I think I'm going to end the poll. I think most of our responses. So I'm going to end and I'm going to share the results so we can all see. So check out these responses. We couldn't have really it was hovering between 48 and then 51. And look at that. We are literally a 50-50 audience.
That is an exact tie. That is perfect.
That is absolutely perfect. You're right. So thank you very much for your responses. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this on to Oge to get us started with today's presentation. So Oge, please take it away. Just give a minute to move our screens here.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can. Thank you. That looks great.
Yeah, and thank you all for joining today and for the responses. I would say I'm a bit surprised because I assumed a lot of people know about the BACCM already. So I think I would kind of adjust my presentation slightly to make sure the nose kind of understand this and goes away with very good understanding of the BACCM. But I will start with telling a short story. So growing up, you would I've seen lots of house projects come alive. And I've often wondered why builders spend a lot of time setting the foundation of those buildings. And very recently, my husband and I had the opportunity to build a new house from the scratch. And then through the course of that construction project, I had the opportunity to interact with the builders and to ask questions as the project progressed. And some of the things I learned were the fact that they spend a lot of time that for every building construction, the most important part is the foundation. And they spend a lot of time making sure the foundation is great and suitable for whatever structure that would come upon on top of it, because any mistakes you make in the foundation will only get worse as you go on. It is known as the compounding defect, and it means as the mistake can only do, it can only get worse. Another reason why the foundation deserves a lot of attention is because the entire house, like you're building a mansion, the entire house sits on top of it. And if there is any error, margin of error building this, the entire, whatever sits on it would not last. So they spend a whole lot of time making sure the foundation is well laid. Someone would ask, I thought the topic today is BACCM. Why are we talking about foundation of houses? So the reason why I started with my short story is the fact that the BACCM, which is the Business Analysis Core Concept Model, is one of the subjects that is foundational for every other concept and ideas within the business analysis practice. So you have to make sure that foundation is well laid before you start building on other knowledge, other ideas, other methodologies and framework on top of that foundation. So I would permit me to use that acronym more, but I've explained what it means. The business BACCM stands for the Business Analysis Core Concept Model. It is a conceptual framework for business analysis, and it encompasses all what business analysis is all about. This concept consists of 3 elements, which is usually constant, irrespective of the perspective, the industry, the methodology you are using, or any level within the organization you are trying to practice business analysis. My experience working with new BAs or aspiring BAs is that most of them usually just focus on memorizing the elements of the core concept model, just so that they can pass one of the IIBA certification exams. Very often, people don't get to use or apply this knowledge beyond passing the IIBA exam. However, you need to be successful in practicing business analysis. You really need to understand this concept. One of my superpowers is simplifying complexity. And in training new and aspiring BAs, I have had to look for ways to simplify this concept and enable my learners understand how they can apply this going forward in their practice of business analysis. We came up with what is called the Business Analysis Canvas, which my co-speaker, Stuart, would walk us through just in a very few minutes here.
So this is the Business Analysis Core Concept Model Canvas. It's taking those pieces that Oge just showed us, and also those relationships, and putting them into a different format. This is meant to be a helpful tool that you can use for a one-page guide that will help you for your project to document these components as you elicit your project's needs. Or you may use this also as a collaborative tool for you to use with your other BAs and your other team members as you go along with your project. Imagine this canvas expanded on a wall where you can swarm together to complete these areas. As we saw in that other picture that Oge showed, these different items are one piece, but they're all related to each other. You'll see the lines that connect between solution and need and solution and value. All of these things connect to each other. And so we need to think about that when we look at the canvas as well, that they're all interconnected and they're all related to each other. Now, no matter how you choose to use this, whether you use it individually as a one-page guide or collaboratively as a group, I always recommend that you begin your journey on the canvas at the stakeholder. I always look at human-centered design, human-centered thinking, and as BAs, we should strive to build our products and services for people, for humans, and for their success. We will continue to talk about these different components of what is part of that business analyst, the analysis core concept model, but continue to think about how we would put this on the canvas as we go along. We can continue.
Okay. Some members of our audience are having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. Is it possible for you to get a little closer to the microphone?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Let's see. Let's do a quick. Okay. How about now? Can you give us a little mic check?
Okay, I'm doing that. Hello, can you hear me?
All right. How is that, folks in the audience?
I'm seeing some thumbs up, and
Okay.
And some goods in the chat, so better.
I think that's better. Yeah. Thanks. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. And thank you, Stuart, for taking us through the Canvas, and Oge for kicking us off. What I'm going to do just a quick audience check-in, and I'm going to open another poll. And just as with the first poll, use the tool here to submit your responses. We'll keep it open for another minute or so. So the question that we're asking here are, what are the 6 core concepts? So we've got change, need, solution, stakeholder, value, and context. Change, need, solution, stakeholder, value, and content, or change, need, clarification, stakeholder, evaluation, and context. So we are gathering some responses. They're coming in fast. Thank you, everybody, for participating. And I'll keep it open for another few moments. And some people are responding in the chat. So if you want to get in the vote here. So I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results. And there we go. I hope everyone can see those results there. It looks like everyone has, or most of the audience has come through with option number 1 with 84%. So I think that is a great thing. And that's right on. So what I will do, I will close this poll. I will pass it back to Oge to take us through our next topic here.
Thanks, Tiffany. Can you hear me good?
Yes, thank you. Yep, you're sounding a lot clearer, and our audience agrees.
Okay, yeah. So thanks for also filling out the poll question, and we see 84% already know what those 6 core concepts are. Let's see how we can bring the rest of the 16% up to that level 2. So in the following slides, we will be talking more about each of the core concept model, each of the elements of the core concept model. And I would start with the first one. Just as Stu mentioned, we would begin, always try to begin your journey with the stakeholder, because typically the stakeholder, most of the items revolve around the stakeholder. And like you saw that the first slide, the core concepts are all interrelated. The stakeholders will usually trigger a change, or they would have a need. And who are stakeholders? Stakeholders are a group of persons that they have relationship with the change. We will come to understand what the change is about in some couple of slides down. The stakeholders are persons that have relationship with your business analysis work. They typically have interest in the work you are doing. They may be impacted by the work you are doing, or they may influence the outcomes of your work. I will use an example here to drive home this point. So for example, you are a business analyst working to improve a sales and marketing process. So the sales and marketing team would be interested, they would influence your work, and they will be impacted by your business analysis work. So they are your key stakeholders. The operations team, because typically when for a typical organization, when sales and marketing brings in the deal, operations will take care of delivering the goods or service to the customer. They may not have a high influence, but they would have interest in the work to be done, because the work around the sales and marketing impacts them. They would also be impacted by the outcomes of this work. Another stakeholder you could also want to consider here is the finance team, who may have influence over the budgets for the business analysis work to be done. And of course, you know, everything in an organization, those tails to dollar and cents, they would be interested or impacted also in this work to be done. So it's important as business analysts, when you start your work, you want to understand who your stakeholders are. And there are various techniques you could actually use to begin to discover them. But I would stick to, for example, you could begin to look at old project documentation, look at the organogram to understand the stakeholders. Another very beautiful tool I use for my stakeholder identification is process modeling. When I model the process using a swim lane, I'm able to understand all the roles that are impacted, and that helps me to begin to identify the stakeholders that are impacted by that process or by that business analysis work to be done. Now, when you want to populate the canvas, there are some questions you want to ask that can help you, apart from the techniques I've mentioned, to help you identify the stakeholders. Some sample questions could be, who are the stakeholders involved? And this could be in a meeting with your project sponsor or a project owner or whoever is kind of initiating that business analysis work to be done. You could also ask questions like, who has the need? Who has this problem? Who needs this opportunity? Who has this constraint? You could also ask questions like, who is interested in or impacted by or can be influenced by the change that is about to happen? This would help you begin to uncover all the stakeholders involved. You don't also want to stop at identifying the stakeholders. You also want to know the characteristics of your stakeholders. So you want to know the level of influence, their level of how they are impacted by the business analysis work you want to do. So when you start from the stakeholder, you can then progress to other elements of the core concept model. And as you are gathering this information, you are plugging it, summarizing and plugging it into your business model, the core concept canvas. So the next, of course, you also want to know the concerns they have regarding the change. We'll quickly jump to the next core concept element, and I call it the need. So once you've identified the stakeholders, you've asked some questions that would help you understand their needs. So what is a need? A need can either be a problem, it can be an opportunity, it can be a constraint that a stakeholder or an organization is trying to address. Needs can trigger changes by motivating the stakeholders to act. Changes or situation in the business environment can also trigger needs. And I would also I want to break this down to help those our audience to better understand their need. For example, again, in a business organization, a problem, because I said needs can be either a problem, it can be an opportunity, or it could be a constraint. Example of a problem could be an inefficient sales process or any process within the organization. It could also be a high rate of customer complaints. You keep receiving complaints from customers about a process, about a product. That is seen as a problem within organization. If your organization is experiencing high customer churn rates and low retention rates, those are also problems which might trigger a project, a change to address. Opportunities could also be implementing, examples of opportunity could be implementing a new technology tool or designing a new product to enable the organization to take advantage of a situation in the market. The last one here is the constraint. See constraint as maybe a regulatory requirement that is imposed on the organization by a regulator. For example, the central bank could decide to change exchange rates. And you need to, for bankers that are regulated by that regulator, you might need to initiate a change to make sure your systems are set up to comply with the requirements of the guidelines from the central bank. Some questions you can begin to ask to uncover what the needs are. What are the needs we are trying to satisfy? So when you identify your stakeholders, you go into elicitation sessions with them, and you begin to ask questions to uncover and really understand what those needs are. You're also asking questions like, what problems are we trying to solve here? You want to have a good understanding of the problem before you begin to delve into solutioning. What opportunities are we trying to take advantage of, even as in the course of this business analysis work? Are there conflicting needs you need to be aware of? All these questions your stakeholders can help you answer. And then if there are so many needs and conflicting needs, how can we prioritize these needs? The business analyst on your own, you are not able to make this decision. You need to work in line with your stakeholders to help you prioritize those needs. The next core concept element is change. And I would describe change as an act of transformation in response to a need. In the last slide, I did mention a bit of a relationship between need and change. They are very, like we mentioned, all the 6 core concepts are related, but change and need have this very close relationship. So a need can trigger a change, and a change can also trigger a need, right? So change is an act of transformation in response to a need. And the changes are actually controlled changes, not just random changes, right? The overall aim of a change initiative is to improve the performance of the organization. And how do you effect change as a business analyst? You effect change through deliberate and controlled application of business analysis principles, practices, and methodologies. That is how you help effect changes that bring positive business outcomes. An example of a change within an organization could be activities to improve a process which the customers have been complaining about. A change could also mean implementing a new software solution. A change from a people perspective could also mean training employees on a new process or a new technology because you want to upskill them to be able to perform at the current state of the organization, at the future state of the organization, I mean. Changes could also mean designing a new product or enhancing an existing product for an organization. And some of the questions you also want to ask, and the reason we are providing you with this question so that it would equip you to go build out, to operationalize the BACCM Canvas and put the core concept model to more use. So questions you can begin to ask in this area is, what kind of changes are we doing? And again, your stakeholders can help you answer this question. And of course, through your application of business analysis, practices, and techniques, you can also uncover these changes. You also want to know what changes are needed to satisfy the need that has been identified or established. And you also want to know what the potential value would be. Another question is what needs to be improved. When you ask this question, it kind of helps identify the changes that needs to happen to bring about that improvement in performance for the organization. The last question I have here that can actually help you uncover the changes also is, what change strategies would ensure the highest value for the stakeholders within the given context of the change we're experiencing? So at this point, I would pause again for Tiffany to take you back.
Yes, I am here. And we're just going to take what I call just kind of a little audience check-in. So thank you for taking us through those concepts. I'm going to launch another question here. And with this poll, as you've been doing with the others, just pop in the appropriate answer in which you think. The question we're asking here is, we're just kind of taking you through a few things. Each core concept is, and then just kind of follow through here, fundamental to business analysis and is equal and necessary, defined by the other 5 core concepts and cannot be fully understood until the concepts are understood. Instrumental to understanding the information elicited, analyzed, or managed in business analysis tasks, or all of the above. And the amount of time it took me to read that, you guys have already put your answers in. So you're sharper than I am, and I'm probably going to close the poll. I think most of the responses have come in. So I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results. And again, 86% of you, wonderful job. All of the above is the answer we were looking for there. So I will go ahead and stop sharing those results, and I will take the opportunity to reintroduce Stuart to take us through the remaining components.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So we've got 3 more components of the BACCM. And the first one on this list, I guess it'd be the 4th one, would be solution. So solution is a means to satisfy a need by creating value. That value is directly associated with the stakeholder's need in a given context. The solution can resolve the stakeholder's problem, help them create an opportunity, or allow for them to do a certain activity. There can be more than one solution for a specific need. Also, the same need may be addressed with different solutions. Often different stakeholders may prefer contrasting solutions, and the business analyst has to balance these requests and take in numerous factors, such as costs, benefits, risks, all those into consideration when recommending the right solution or solutions. A solution is only successful if it fulfills a stakeholder's needs. When that happens, it may not become a need anymore, but it could become part of the normal day-to-day operations of a business. In that case, it may produce new needs and changes, and the organizational infrastructure itself, in fact, becomes a collection of existing solutions, and those are solutions to those existing needs. It again becomes a relationship and a cycle of needs, changes, and solutions. So questions that you may want to ask when looking at solutions are going to be, what are the solutions that we're creating? Also, how is the problem going to be resolved? How can we take advantage of this opportunity? How can we achieve the highest value for the stakeholders within those contexts? And does the proposed solution satisfy the need? Is the solution delivering its potential value? So I talked a little bit about context in there, what the solution has for context. What does that mean? Well, a context is a set of circumstances that creates an environment where change takes place. It helps us understand the change. The context is a crucial part that BAs should consider, since all changes and solutions take place in a space of existing processes and systems. Context is the environment or the space in which we work in which solutions work in which needs come out of. Understanding how a new solution will work in that environment can make or break a project. The context helps determine what's relevant to the project and what provides the setting for the stakeholders to communicate and identify the relationships with their changes and their solutions. Different stakeholders may operate in different contexts, but for a BA, all stakeholders and their contexts are equally important. The BABAC lists several things that could be contexts. These are attitudes, behaviors, beliefs, languages, the infrastructure, your government, seasons, weather, technology, all sorts of things could be part of the context, that space that you are in. So what are some questions that we might ask? They include, what are the contexts that the stakeholders are in? Others might be, what are the limitations that might prevent a solution to work? That would be part of that context. What are circumstances within an environment that would influence or are influenced by a change or a solution? Context is huge. And it has relationship with every one of those other components inside of the BACCM. The final one here, value, is very difficult to understand. You would think value, well, that's kind of easy. But when you break it down, it's kind of harder. The value represents the worth or the significance of the solution to the stakeholder. Value can be positive, demonstrated in returns or improvements, but also in some cases, it can be negative when it comes in the form of losses or costs. Of all the business analyst concepts, this can be the hardest one to grasp and clearly define. The solution needs to bring tangible and intangible value to an enterprise. So tangible values are measurable and can include savings and profits, but intangible ones include perhaps technology and security advances, could be government policy updates, it could be internal morale programs, or it could be an increase in the organization's reputation. The value is not always absolute, and it can be subjective and more valuable for one set of stakeholders than for another set of stakeholders. For example, the same solution may not bring the same value for a sales department as a marketing department. The technology group may want to have advances that may not actually ever benefit a certain advertising department or other groups. So this is a difficult one enterprise-wide to understand a value of a solution. The value of needs has to be prioritized, all of those relationships between the different components. So you start out with those stakeholders again. What do the stakeholders see as value? It's different than what do stakeholders see as need. This is, what is the value of that need? What's the benefit that they will receive if they get that solution? What impacts that value? Are there different values for different stakeholders? And how do we assess and measure that potential value once we've arrived at a solution or solutions? This is one that takes time, and takes time with your different stakeholders in their different contexts that they live in. So we've talked about all the different components, and I'm going to move on a little bit here to talk about how do we use it? How do we apply it? We talked about the canvas and how you can use that canvas. I'm going to talk about now how do you apply these components to the canvas. And we think about that canvas as possibly a one-page summary of the business project and the initiative that you're on. You can use it to help identify what the needs are to be done and who are the actors involved, the solution and the value, and how it lays out, how all those relationships lay out. So this is one way that you can use it, that one-page summary of the business objectives and the initiative to have at your side. The other way is a great communication tool for both your team and external stakeholders, both business and non-business. You can use it to communicate to executives and others with influence. It lets you tell the story. about the situation, the context, the proposed resolutions, and justify your findings. It's a great tool to use to prepare for elicitation planning. Use it to capture those key requirements as you discover the needs and the potential value of those solutions. Use it to help manage the different types of stakeholders and the context that those stakeholders live in and how they would be affected in unique different ways. Use it for a quick onboarding tool for new project stakeholders. Use it to determine who should be involved in an initiative, who would be affected by the changes, and provide value for your solutions. It's good as a starting point for organizational change. You can use this for an endpoint for strategy analysis, knowledge area to help define a future state and develop a change strategy to achieve that future state. This canvas can be used, to identify the characteristics of change, including concerns that stakeholders may have about that change. The canvas can help to guide more detailed elicitation and collaboration. And the final thing, not necessarily the final thing you can do with the canvas, but the final thing I'll point out with here is a reference point and guardrails for the team members as they continue to design and to put solutions together. Use this to trace requirements as you go along to ensure that the solution satisfies the need. You can also use this to define solution options and recommend the one that most likely addresses the need in its context and has the most value. You will have all of those documented on this canvas.
Thank you. That was great. I feel like this slide is such a nice summary of how to apply everything that we're going through here. What I'm going to do is at the top of this webinar, we opened with a question about how familiar the audience was with BACCM. So what we're going to do is we are going to ask you another question, and we just want to know, do you feel more comfortable with the BACCM now? The top, we were split. We were 50-50. Some felt very comfortable and familiar with the concepts, and half of our audience did not. But with this deeper dive and this this summary by Oge and Stuart, I know how I'm feeling, but we'll see how everyone else is feeling. So I'll keep the poll open for another few seconds. And yeah, question of course they're asking is, do you feel more comfortable with the BACCM now? And your options is yes, I do. And your other option was no, I'd like to learn more. So I'm ending the poll. I'm sharing the results. And this is, of course, the kind of response that we love to see, that that you're feeling more comfortable with the concept shared and kind of elaborated, and the application of the Canvas are all great points. So I'm going to close this poll, and I'm going to invite Oge to kind of take us through our final slides here. So Oge, please take it away. Okay, I think we may have lost your audio.
Can you hear me good?
Yes, we've got you again. Okay, great.
Am I sharing?
You are sharing. I can see your screen, and we're looking at steps to designing your own BACCM Canvas.
Thank you. So again, thank you, Tiffany, and thanks for the feedback. It's also helping us see how we can help you leave this presentation with value. So we still have 18% that want to learn more, and hopefully going through the steps of designing your own canvas can help you. And also rewatching the recordings after this webinar would also help you come up to speed. So Because Stuart and I thought about how to make this as practical as possible for the audience, and we wanted to make sure people leave this 1 hour session with something they can actually hit the ground running in their business analysis work. And so we did not just want to show you how to apply this, but how to also build out your own business analysis core concept model canvas and begin to use in your workplace. So we have a couple of steps here we have defined. And like the very first step Stuart mentioned was identifying your stakeholders, because most of your answers, some you will get through analysis, but most of the work you will do in collaboration with your stakeholders. So first step, identify your stakeholders, right? And then you don't have to identify all the stakeholders from the very beginning, but the key stakeholders, identify them, and then you can continue to identify more stakeholders through elicitation and through further analysis work you do. So now you are ready to start populating your canvas. You need to plan and prepare for elicitation. And like for those that have read the BABOK, you know, elicitation is the act of drawing forth business analysis information that will help you do further business analysis work. And so for each of those 6 components, you need to do some form of elicitation to understand them for your particular project. So you need to plan and prepare for your elicitation. The next step is to conduct those elicitation, analyze your elicitation result. And in conducting your elicitation, it could mean having workshops, focus groups, meetings, one-on-one meetings with some stakeholders. It could even be surveys. It could be you, the BA, performing some document analysis. And when you are done with all your planned elicitation, you need to analyze and summarize your results. Once you are done summarizing your results, you need to validate your findings, right? Just to make sure nothing has changed and that the information you have to proceed to continue your further business analysis work is correct. The next step, then, once you validate your finding, you make updates if there are changes that were proposed by your stakeholders or from more information you got. You then begin to plug this information into the core concept canvas. The next step would be to socialize and begin to use your core concept canvas. And what do I mean by socialize? So now you have built out your beautiful canvas. You need to put it out there, not just to guide you as a BA, but for example, based on the application examples Stuart shared with us in the previous slide. You want to use it to onboard your stakeholders. You want to use it for status report meetings. You want to use it for different ways it would come in handy. So socialize it with your stakeholders and then get familiar with it. Like, it's so useful as a great communication tool and just a one-page summary of the business analysis work you are doing. But also note, you do not prepare your canvas once and for all. You will continually monitor the core concept for changes, because we know it's an iterative process, I would rather say. You don't design it once and for all. You keep scanning for changes and keep updating your canvas as you go along on your project.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to take this opportunity now to open up the floor to Q&A from the audience. So I welcome our attendees to send their questions using the Q&A section within Zoom. I do know that there are quite a few questions that have already popped in the question box already. So thank you for popping in your questions. I've also been trying to monitor the chat. There are a couple questions that have popped up in there. So I'll try to pull those and address as many as we possibly can. One question that I'd like to kind of address, because it's come up in a couple different ways. So we will be providing a recording of the webinar as well as the slides post session. So that will go out to everybody. And then the rest of the questions, I will just dive in and start getting these questions out to you guys. So there is a question that says, are the components referred in the BACCM Canvas different in waterfall model and agile methodologies, ways of working? So depending on your approaches, do you, I guess, are they applicable? And I don't know who wants to answer that one, or or Stuart or okay.
I can try to address that question. So for me, if you looked at the beginning during the introduction, the core concept models are basically kind of constant. These are variables that are constant, irrespective of the business analysis work you are doing, the methodology or the framework you are using. For example, the needs will always remain the need, whether it's agile or waterfall. A business need to implement a new solution, a new technology solution would not change. Rather, what would change is the approach, how you want to go about implementing it. For example, maybe when you are describing the change characteristics, how do you want to apply that change? But typically your need, the solution, and the business value you hope to realize, the stakeholders, the context would remain constant irrespective. Even the change would generally remain constant irrespective of whether it's agile or waterfall you want to apply in delivering your projects.
Okay, thank you.
I want to add something again. So whether you're using agile or waterfall is your approach to get into the future state, right? It doesn't affect the core concept. It doesn't affect the elements of the core concept that much.
Another thing is just to think realistically on waterfall projects that I've been a part of. Sometimes they take a long time to resolve. It could be months. Some projects can be years to resolve. And during that time, do you have change in your stakeholders? I have had leaders that have left. I have had churn and turnover in the stakeholders. So does that change your canvas? Absolutely. You now have new stakeholders that you need to interview or shadow and find out what are their needs, what are their contexts. And so now your entire canvas changes. So whether it's in Agile or Waterfall, this is a living document, no matter what sort of project you're in, because times change. And so whether you're in a project that's Agile or not, those stakeholders are your key. And if those stakeholders move in and out and now have new needs, new contexts, that changes your entire landscape.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for that. Like I said, you continuously monitor for change. Agile, waterfall, continuously monitor for change and update your canvas.
Sounds great. Thank you both for the additional context. I've got a question from Duncan in the Q&A that says, is there a logical sequence to follow when populating the BACCM Canvas, or can it be populated in any order?
Stu, do you want to go for
Yeah,
that?
I mean, it could be in any order. I like to start with the stakeholders because we're in a world where we're trying to build to the human needs and what people need. If we don't start with the human, we will end up with the wrong product, the wrong solution. So I like to look at the stakeholders first and what their needs are. So I normally will start stakeholders and needs and the context. That's the way that I usually think about them. Those are the first three steps that I begin with. It can be different for every project, though.
Yeah.
Right.
From my experience, I actually start from the stakeholders to the needs. Sometimes at the very beginning, you wouldn't have all the information about the changes or the solution, right? So stakeholders first, needs, and like Stuart said, context. And as you learn more, you continue to update your canvas.
Awesome. So along those lines, I have a question from Kyle in the question box that says, can we create a mock canvas as an example? I'm not clear on how to actually design one. Is it just listing the components?
So unfortunately, because of the time for this webinar,
Right, like live, we can't.
So maybe what I can say is, for example, you identifying your stakeholders. You can just come under the stakeholders to put the roles. Their roles is very important, and then the name, because people come and go, but the roles remain, right? So you see, you populate the stakeholders, you put in information in the stakeholders box, and try not to use long sentences. For example, when you are describing the needs or the changes, you keep it simple. It could just be bullet points. This is very high level, a one-page summary. You don't have to fit it in with so many information. So just a list would do if you ask me.
Okay. And I know that we provided some links in the chat too, to be able to download. You do need to fill in a small form, but you can get an example that Oge was referring to. I do the chat. There's a lot of questions, so I'm doing my best to try to get to everybody here. There was actually a question in the chat, and while we still have you, Susan, it was about how to volunteer. I don't know if you want to take a second to shed some light on that one.
Well, thank you for that question. We love having volunteers. They can tell you just how much of a difference that you make when you are a volunteer. So if you are interested in volunteering, go out to IIBA.org, go to the Get Involved menu, and under there you'll see a link for volunteering. And there we've got, you can browse our opportunities, that's what it's called. And you can take a look at what we have going on, or you can just express interest. And another way that you can get involved is if you are part of a chapter, reach out to your chapter leadership and let them know that you're interested in volunteering. Our chapters, there's about 120 all over the world. They are led by volunteers who do amazing things. In fact, we've got our volunteer awards coming up in November, so we're going to hear about all the incredible things they've been doing. It is a great way for you not only to give back your expertise, interests, and knowledge to the community, but you also get so much back as well. So that's my suggestion. Sign up online and or talk with your chapter. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Just jumping over to a question. I think this one's from Helen, and it says, how do you handle unreachable stakeholders like surgeons, for example? I don't know if either of you guys have experience with hard to get a hold of stakeholders.
Well, surgeons, that's hard. I have been a part of manufacturing organizations that are in, very clean rooms, and asked if it's possible to shadow them to the point where can I be in the same area as them, to be able to witness, to empathize what they're going through, so that while I may not have their voice, I can at least witness and see what they're going through, to understand what the stakeholders' context is, and maybe see what their needs are. In a surgery room, that may not be, you may not get the green light for that. But there, you could search and find for channels or way to find a channel to communicate with those stakeholders.
Okay. That is a challenging one, but yeah, that's a good advice and perspective. So I'm just doing my best to kind of scan the chat here, as well as the question box. I have one from Terry, and I think we've kind of answered this, but where can I find the Canvas template? And then she has a question in regards to CDU. So I can put something in the chat in regards to the CDUs. And in terms of the template, okay, do you want to elaborate? I did put the link in the chat, but I'll let you take a moment to elaborate on that.
Yes, so as part of this presentation, we've provided you with a link to download the Canvas and just a little write-up to also guide you on how I've used it and how you can also go about designing your own Canvas. So just click on the link and provide your email, and then you can download a copy of the Canvas for your use.
Okay, great. And then this one was actually tagged to you, Oge, from Joe, and he's saying, can you share examples of your experiences when you're applying your knowledge of BACCM? Oh, you still on mute.
Yeah, Stuart kind of covered it a bit. Like for me, it's a great onboarding tool for my project stakeholder. Like I might have a new stakeholder that comes on board the project in the middle of the project. And I don't want to overwhelm that stakeholder with so many information. I want to ease the stakeholder into my project. Using the core concept model Canvas is a great tool, right? Bring them into a short meeting, walk them through the Canvas, probably even send it ahead to them prior to the meeting so they can read it and come up with questions. It's also a good place. I use it very well when I want to do OCM, because part of my work as a business analysis professional is organizational change management. And looking at the Canvas, I know who my stakeholders are, the people that are impacted by the change. I know what the changes are. I know what the needs is. And that helps me begin to design my change management strategy. The other way I've used it is, again, if I want to start out elicitation planning, I want to be able to identify all my stakeholders and book out time to engage them in elicitation. So I've used it in so many ways, more ways than none. And if you go back to the slide, or when you look at this recording where Stuart talked about it, that gives you lots of ideas on how you can put this to use in your work.
For sure. That's great. So I'm just doing it for the sake of the time. I have a lot of questions, but what we'll do is we will continue to go through these questions, and we will do our best to maybe answer them offline in a future blog. So please kind of keep an eye out for that. And just to confirm, we will share any of the relevant links in a post webinar email. So everyone will be able to get access to the helpful resources that we share today. This was such a great topic to cover. I'm sure we could actually talk for another half an hour and more about this. Just wanted to shed some light. If you are an IIBA member, there is a new section that has just been launched on the BACCM. So you can check that out. If you're not a member yet, you can still kind of get a flavor for it on our site at iiba.org/access-to-analysis. And I just want to make sure to thank our speakers for leading and participating in this really informative session. If you'd like to get in touch with either of our speakers, Oge, the best place to reach her is on social media, through her LinkedIn page. Again, she is an endorsed IIBA education provider through her website at pollardconsults.com. And then the best place to reach Stuart is on social media as well, active on LinkedIn, so you can check him out on his LinkedIn page. Again, can't thank you both enough for the time and your invaluable experience and insights on applying BACCM to your everyday business analysis practices. And finally, a special thank you for our attendees for being here today. I know it's hard to find an hour sometimes to delve into to a topic like this. Again, we'll send you a follow-up email. Please feel free to respond with any questions or comments you may have. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.